One of my live stream lectures this morning. And before I get started, I just want to take a moment to thank all of my supporters and everyone for supporting my channel. And with that being said, let's get on down to today's lecture, which is, yes, people rural. Federal student loans are still being forgiven. Make no mistake about that. That is the focus of this lecture. I just want to share with everyone that September of 2023, the remaining balance of my federal student loan in the amount of $73,000 was forgiven. August of 2023, the remaining balance of my federal student loan in amount of $73,000 was forgiven. And that was the pivot point in my life that set the stage for me to fully retire September of 2023, and the rest is history. You know, since I've been in retirement, I still stay in contact with many of my ex-co-workers. I retired out of the state of North Carolina as a licensed clinical addiction expert. I clinical supervise many people in the field of addiction. And throughout this almost 3 years that I've been in retirement, you know, I still communicate and stay in contact with a few of my close friends who are still in the workforce, and they have alerted me to let me know that they have had their federal student loan forgiven. You know, I've talked to a lot of people in the natural environment, and I'm overwhelmingly getting information from people I meet in the natural environment, how they self-disclose and share how their federal student loan has been forgiven. So I say that to say, rural, yes, the federal student loan are still being forgiven. But however, in order to make that happen, because again, my federal student loan in the amount of $73,000 was fully forgiven in August of 2023. But number one, I tell anyone, number one, you got to make sure you're behind in the program. You got to make sure you are enrolled in the federal student loan forgiveness program in Mohella now, because they're now the new service provider. Mohella, yeah, you need to go to their website. They are the service providers who governs that now. And because I just listen to a lot of people, and most people are clueless because they're not going to the source. The source is Mohella. They are the federal loan service provider who manages that loan forgiveness process. And one of the things that happens was I still got my powerful letter from Mohella when they forgave my federal student loan in August of 2023 in the amount of $73,000. When you have gone through that process, that journey, because there's things you got to do to re-credential, renew your paperwork year after year to qualify, to make sure you stay in compliance according to the service provider. And when you've done all of that, Mohella sent me a powerful letter. And in that letter, they sent me this powerful letter, August 17th of 2023, and I got this in a sheet protector. And in this powerful federal letter, it literally says, got my name and all that demographics, congratulations. The Biden-Harris administration has forgiven the remainder balance of your federal student loan in the amount of $73,000. They sent me this letter. And when I went into my account, my student loan account, I saw zero all the way across. It no longer showed $73,000 that I owed. And when I turned this powerful letter over, it also instructed me what you need to do now in this letter, due to the American Response Plan Act of 2021, the balance of your loans that was forgiven is not considered taxable income for federal income tax purposes. And I made sure when I filed my taxes back then, because it typically any type of debt that's cancelable you will be taxed on that income. But in this powerful letter that Mahela sent me, it clearly states in this letter, due to the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, you are not to be taxed on this debt that was canceled for income tax purposes. And you better believe I gave my CPA a copy of this letter. Because now what the government is telling me, we have canceled this. You ain't gonna be taxed on this cancellation. And then in the same letter, rural, we have what Mohela did, the federal student loan service provider, is they said in this letter, we have also notified all of the 3 major credit bureaus, Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian, that your student loan has been forgiven. So historically, when that loan, prior to my loan being forgiven, when I would have gone into those major credit bureaus, it would have showed on my credit report, because on your credit report, it would show your debt. It showed on Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian, you owe $73,000 in federal student loan. But because my loan was forgiven, and according to this powerful letter, what Mohela did, they went in, alerted those major credit bureaus to let them know that that $73,000 has been zeroed out. And so now when I go check my credit report, instead of it saying on Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian that your balance of your school loan is $73,000, for Equifax now it says 0. For TransUnion, now it says 0. For Experian, now it says 0. As according to the letter that the service provider did, they didn't just cancel my debt. They took it a step further to alert those credit bureaus to go in and change that 73,000 to a 0. And they also let me know, make sure you show your accountant this letter so you are not taxed on that debt cancellation. And you better believe I did that back in 2023. And the caveat to all of this, when my federal student loan in the amount of $73,000 was forgiven, Mohela, the service provider, they went in because they analyzed and they audited and everything. That was a 10-year journey, people. You know, 10 years before I retired, I sat my behind down and wrote down a master business plan to ensure that I was debt-free prior to our retirement in September of 2023. So September 2023, 10 years prior to that, I was laser focused. And a part of that laser focus was to enroll in the federal student loan forgiveness program, because I knew that was a 10-year process. 120 qualifying payments, that's 10 years. So I had to put on my business plan, I'm going to meet all of the requirements that the service provider want me to meet. I'm going to make sure I renew my paperwork every year. I'm going to make sure I'm under a qualified employer. I'm going to do every doggone thing that they ask me to do, because they're managing my federal student loan. So I can, at the finish line, they can send me this letter. And they did. And at the very end, Mohela, the service provider, went in and analyzed my account. And according to the outcome of the analyzation, Mohela, the federal student loans provider, said that somewhere back in 2012, which I don't remember, but I'm going to trust their analyze. Because trust me, they're analyzing everything under your account before they send you this. And according to the outcome of the investigation or analyzing my federal student loan account, they said I overpaid my federal student loan by $8,000 overpayment. So when they went in and wiped out that $73,000, they turned right around a month later and mailed me a refund check, and I kept a copy of it. They Mohela, the service provider, mailed me a refund check in amount of $8,000, because this is what they said I overpaid, and I kept a copy of that check and invested that $8,000 into my financial portfolio. So bottom line, I handled my business, and yes, federal student loans are still being forgiven. I've gotten multiple reports from a lot of my co-workers who are still in the workforce who went through the same doors that I went through. And you know what? They have gotten their powerful congratulatory letter to alert them that their federal student loan has been forgiven and their balance is now zero. They got the same letter that the service provider sent me, alerting them that they're gonna alert the credit bureaus so that balance can reflect zero. And all of my co-workers who I stayed in contact with, they got a refund check not as big as mine. So I'm here to tell you, rural, that federal student loans are still being forgiven. I tell anyone, go to the source. Don't go by what you hear. Because 9 times out of 10, when you hear people talking about the federal student loans forgiveness program, it's from people who have not gone through the door and gotten their loan forgiven and gotten a refund check. Go to the source. The source is Mohela. They are the service providers for the loan forgiveness. They will let you know what forms you need to fill out. They will let you know on what qualifies as a qualified employer. Go to the source and handle your business. Because there are so many people of all ages in their 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s. There's people in retirement getting their pension garnished because they have allowed their student loan to go into default. There are people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, even older, who are getting their paychecks garnished because they have allowed their federal student loan to go into default. And now it's had a negative impact on their credit score. And I tell anybody, I've had a conversation with someone in their 40s about a month ago who are in default on their school loan. And I'm just listening. I'm just, I listened to this individual for 1 hour. And when I got done listening to this person complaining about that their federal student loan is in default, their paycheck getting garnished, and finally, when I listened enough, I flat out asked that person, have you contacted Mohela, the federal student loan service provider? They will guide you through the process to first of all, get your loan out of default. They will guide you. That's what they're there for. No, I was told that they can't. Have you contacted the provider, Mohela, the federal student loan service provider? They will guide you that process. And that person kept saying, no, I heard this and I said, okay, I'm through. I'm done. I've gone through the door. I have worked people shoulder to shoulder for 25 years. I've worked for people shoulder to shoulder. And since I retired September 2023, I'm still staying in contact with a lot of my ex-co-workers. And overwhelmingly, they're telling me that they have gotten their federal student loan forgiven. I'm meeting people in the natural environment. I'm meeting people who have gotten their federal student loan. And what I hear is that they are going to the source to rectify this. And I always tell anybody, anything that you do in life, anything that in the military, first of all, I've been goal focused since age 5. Anything that you do in life, people, I don't care if it's a business goal or a personal goal, or a project you're working on. Anything that you do in life, and I've always known this since the age of 5, always go to the source to gather your data, to gather your information. Don't go off what so-and-so say. Don't go off hearsay. Don't go off what you hear on social media. Go to the source. And that source, that stakeholder, will give you the correct information. Or if you personally know somebody who has gone through the door and they got the evidence to prove it, and they're willing to give you correct information, be receptive to receive that correct information. Because what a lot of people do is block their own blessings when they have knowledge or information in reference to a door they're going through, but they got that mindset, I'm gonna keep all this information to myself. You ain't doing nothing but hurting yourself. Because anybody in my circle, which ain't got a whole lot of folks in my real world, for real, who got my phone number, who got my address. That's what I'm talking about, real world people. Anybody in my real world, and it's probably about one person, know that if a person come to me and ask me a question in relation to a door I have gone through, I'm going to impart that knowledge. I'm going to put information in their hand, for real. I've been that way all of my life. It can be a process on how to get a particular credential, because I got all kind of addiction credentials. It can be how to write a book, because I've got my book published. It can be how to monetize your channel. It can be how to write a business plan or whatever. I've gone to the door. It could be what are the steps I need to go through to get my federal student loan forgiven. I've gone through the door, people. That's how I roll. I've been this way all my life. It can be the process on how to join the military. I don't care if we're in 2026. That process ain't changed, people. There is a process and a standard and a criteria you got to go through in order to qualify to get into the military. I'm a veteran, United States Marine Corps. I served during the Desert Storm era, and that process ain't changing, people. So anybody in my circle know if I have gone through the door and if I got correct information, I'm going to impart that knowledge to that person. I'm going to put paperwork in your hand. And once I've done that, I'm not going to push it on you. Once I've done my due diligence and imparted that information and imparted that knowledge, it is up to you in regards to what you're going to do with it. Because I've shared my knowledge to people I met in the natural environment, and I showed them the evidence I've gone through the door, and they'll look at me, well, I don't know. You sure you know what you're talking about? Well, I heard on social media or so-and-so. I said, well, have these people gone through the door? That's all I want to say. I mean, I've given you the information. I shared this information. I put all this paperwork in your hand, and it's up to you on whether or not you want to stay stuck. It is up to you on whether or not you want to utilize this powerful information to move you forward, because I got what you're trying to get, bottom line. And I know enough to know that if I hold on to certain knowledge, and especially if I've gone through the door, if I hold on to information when a person come to me and ask me something, and I know that process and I've gone through that process, then I'm blocking my blessings. I've known that since age 5. I'm blocking my blessings. So again, yes, the federal student loan, people are still getting their federal student loan forgiven. And whatever amount that's forgiven, it is not considered taxable income according to the federal government, because of the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. When you get your federal student loan forgiven, you are not taxed on that income according to the evidence. Share this information. And I really do want to thank everyone I see some folks are in my live stream. See, I've got a donation. I want to thank for the donation. I want to thank my supporters. I want to thank God, first of all, most importantly. I want to thank God for using me as a tool, as a vessel to guide my channel. It is all about his glory, people. It really is. It's all about the glory of God. And I want to thank God for giving me the knowledge and the skills and the ability and the passion to do what I do as a content creator. I want to thank God for giving me the wisdom to understand the importance of understanding that there's a difference between the social media persona and your real life persona. As a content creator, if you don't do anything else, know that there's a difference. Keep it separate, because your social media persona ain't nothing like your real life persona. Embrace that as a content creator. Be open and receptive to embrace that business model, because, being a monetized channel, being a content creator, it is a business by evidence that YouTube sends you a 1099 at the end of the year to reflect your income. We're considered as independent contractors. Embrace that business model by evidence. Violate those community guidelines, YouTube will shut your channel down. Have that business plan in place with measurable goals and objectives, the driving force behind your YouTube channel. You should be looking at that business plan, touching that business plan, updating that business plan in relation to your YouTube channel. Because if you are not looking at that business plan, updating that business plan, and revising that business plan, how are you going to measure the progress of your channel? Real talk. And I've had these discussions before. So again, I want to say this loud and clear, people. And I've done this lecture before. And I was not expecting a refund in the amount of $8,000 in 2023. But I knew enough to know that, I had to sit down 10 years before I retired, because one of the goals that I wanted to make sure that I reach prior to retirement, I was not going to enter retirement. I retired early from state government and military. I was not going to retire and exit up out of this workforce with debt, people. I refuse, I got my little basic cell phone bill and bottled water and what else I have? Internet, that's about it. But I was not going to enter retirement owing nobody nothing. And I was not going to enter retirement with a $73,000 school loan debt. I returned back to school late in life, in my early 40s, to get my master's degree. So I was not going to enter retirement with a federal student loan in the amount of $73,000. Wasn't going to do it. And that was the pivot point, the driving force for me to enroll in the federal student loan forgiveness program. And I did everything that they asked me to do all the way up until I met all of the criteria to get this letter. The goal is to get this letter. People are still getting their loan forgiven. They're getting this letter just like I got it. And it's real, people. Go to the source. And one thing anybody can say about Marie Holiday as a content creator, especially when I do my live stream lectures, I'm going to do thought-provoking lectures. I'm gonna provoke your thinking. I'm going to get in front of these cameras with useful information, something that you can walk away with. Because I'm telling you right now that there are people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. There's people who are graduating college right now with federal student loan debt. There are people in default in the school loan debt. Real talk, you may be one of them. So again, I want to thank all of my supporters. I want to thank this donation that I'm looking at. It supports my channel. I really do just want to give all grace and glory to the Almighty God. And as long as He gives me breath, I'm going to continue to come in front of these cameras when I'm guided by the Spirit to lecture on specific topics. The Spirit guided me to revisit this lecture. It really did. Because I've had too many recent conversations with folks who are in default on their school loan. And I've also had too many recent conversations in the real world with individuals who have gotten their federal student loan forgiven. And again, the MOHELA, and it says on here, MOHELA is the federal student aid. MOHELA is the Department of Education service provider. Go to the source. You ain't got to listen to one thing I said, but if you got a federal student loan, go to MOHELA and they will guide you towards the process. That's all I have. Again, I want to thank everyone. Simplify, simple fidelis, and I'm going to leave you in the care of your own conscience. Have a great day.